At just the age of 18, Myles Lewis-Skelly is already an Arsenal hero, and after the North London derby, in which he played brilliant in yet again, he has become a guaranteed starter on the team sheet every week. In this video, we're going to go through everything he did in the Tottenham game so well, and why he has a potential England start coming up in the near future. So let's get into it. Now, Arsenal's performance against Tottenham was amazing yet again. They proved really well that they can counter press effectively, winning the ball back in any position, and actually took a chance finally by winning the ball up high up the pitch. Of course, there was a lot of poor finishing still, and Arsenal's game was a lot closer than you would actually want it to be, but from actually watching the game, you can tell Arsenal were clearly the most dominant team. Myles Lewis-Skelly was one of the big reasons for that. With the news that Calafiori yet again was out injured, it was a big expectation that Myles had on his shoulders to start the game in left back, of course, over all the other ones. And I think him and Gabriel alongside him were probably the two best players on the pitch completely, and made Arsenal really dominant. Now, first of all, obviously Myles Lewis-Skelly is going to know what this game means. He was grown up around the Arsenal area. He's been in the academy since he was 8 years old, and he is Arsenal through and through. But what I really liked about him specifically in this game was how aggressive he was in that press when he needed to be. Now, usually Arsenal have a pressing system where we push the other team to go down the right hand side, and we still did that quite a lot in this game, where we really pressed Jed Spence when he picked the ball up in left back and sort of closed the angles down so we could win the ball back when they played it into midfield and then go on a break, which we saw for the second goal. However, we also had a lot of effective use out of that from the left back position of Myles Lewis-Skelly. He was very proactive in making tackles and getting in front of players, especially in the press, that often a lot of the time he actually backed up Trossard and was there ready to win the ball back, and sometimes he did this, I think, brilliantly. And in the game, he almost came quite nippy. He was always putting a foot in there, always making sure he left something on the Tottenham players, not only to let you know that you're there, but also to win the ball back. I think that he was very sensible of when he went in physical, and obviously he did his thing where he holds the player close and then tries to stop their movements, which I actually think really worked against Woklzbusiness, and the only really time he had success is when he came deeper to receive, and he was making a lot of good defensive work out on that wing, even without some of the help that did come at certain times. Now, what particularly also interests me is when he picked up the ball from winning the ball back, if any other Arsenal player was there, they would pass the ball to him yet again and make him run forward into the space. Now, he does this naturally by himself, but I think this is a very vital component of his game and Arsenal playing him. Of course, there is players in the team that can do that, such as Timber, for example, but on the left side, it really makes us much more effective when we've got a player that is willing to carry the ball further up the field, and particularly that is better when you've got people like Declan Rice or even people like Havertz coming across to cover for him. It allows someone to actually get the ball forward, and usually Odegaard was actually in quite an elevated position in this game because of our double pivot, so that actually worked with him up there. This is also quite important because a lot of the time he was progressing the ball, passing it to the right hand side where we often had Odegaard and Sterling, and this was the whole point I think Sterling played, to be that breaking option if Arsenal needed and be that transitional threat. I think that if we were to look to buy a right winger, it would be someone that can do that as well, because Myles Lewis-Skelly is carrying us up the field from the left hand side, pushing us into that area. Now, I also liked how he was used in the final third. We've spoken about it before, but he is quite nervous at actually creating chances when he's in space, and in this game it's quite hard for him to get space because Tottenham really did get back quickly. This meant he often just become a facilitator in the final third, and was often actually one of the players that is there anchoring, making sure that if Tottenham do break, he can get a tackle in and win the ball back, which he did so effectively quite a lot. However, there was a few times he made some quite interesting runs where he would go on the inside, on the underlap, and try and get a ball in, which I do think I want to see more of him in the future. I think it's a really good potential for him even to get into them elevated positions. And the reason why I also say this is because obviously there's a worry if your wing back or fullback goes up too much, are they going to be able to recover? But in this game, I actually think it was the best recovery I saw from Myles Lewis-Skelly overall. Now, he has done it really well in the past, but in this game particularly, he just knew when to run back and was so quick at getting back and helping Rice, who would usually cover for him. This did give Arsenal yet another a little bit more excitement going forward and gave us more numbers up there, because as soon as Declan Rice would have a 2v1, and he did brilliant this game as well, he would hold them up and Myles Lewis-Skelly would come back and do a great tackle, and it happened quite a few times. And Woklzbusiness isn't exactly a really pacey winger, he is more of a technical dribbler, and I do think that really helped Myles because he was able to use his pace to get back and actually show some physicality with him to win the ball back. And Kulusevski is a good player. This is no mean feat. And the way he uses his body is genuinely becoming actually absurd. I've always said that it's probably the best thing that Myles has in his locker, and the more you watch him, the more you realise that this is just unhumane. Any player that is on him, he is so aware of when to actually commit to keeping the ball, or when to do a little dummy, or when to actually shield it from someone, that he always looks like he's going to keep it. There's only very rare instances where there's 3 or 4 players on him where it becomes a little bit too much for him. Even when the ball is received to him and it's a situation where he might lose it, he does a little dummy, he keeps the ball and passes it off. And it is so effective because when he goes on a big run or tries to keep the ball, he basically sees if the contact is going to come in, so if someone's actually going to go physically on him, and he'll go away from that and make sure that doesn't happen, and that makes him realise that there's no gaps there to run so he can pass it back. It almost gives him a fail-safe option when he's making any sort of run, because he can tell and feel that damage and contact that's going to happen to make his decision if he actually wants to commit to something. And this is very effective because if not, he'll just pass it back, which is absolutely fine. And to put the cherry on the top, he was just so aware all game. You know, loose balls he's picking up, he's in the box clearing things that matter, and even when Brennan Johnson came on, he just could not get past him at all. The amount of athleticism he has, but also the amount of aggression and physical nature he has, makes him so good. And we have to talk about that celebration he did at the end of the game. It's clearly not a yellow. I don't really know why he's got one. I think the ref has just lost it here, but you can just see how happy he was, coming off very proud of his performance and the fact he is Arsenal through and through, which does mean a lot to a lot of the fans. He's someone that they can look to when it is hard times, because he does actually understand what it means to play for the club and be at this institute. And him hyping the crowd up after just picking up a yellow, after annoying some of the Tottenham players, it's just typical Myles Lewis-Skelly. It's exactly what you want to see. This guy's personality is just incredible. I think that his attitude is amazing, and when he speaks in interviews, it was really good to see how happy he was with this game, and he should be, because going into this game, there's a lot of people that don't really realise the odds. He was the second youngest player to ever start a North London derby, obviously behind the legendary Cesc Fabregas. And 2 months ago, this guy was barely picking up any minutes. We had to put him in for a few injuries, and we spent £40 million on another left back. But it's quite clear that this guy not only does bring a little bit of difference to Calafiori, I do think Calafiori is better in certain ways, i.e. in the box and being a bit more efficient in them areas. However, right now we're finding a perfect method to work with Myles Lewis-Skelly, who is brilliant at other things. I think he's a better defender than Calafiori, for instance, which is making him a main part of the team. And I know it might be recency bias, but I genuinely do think this could be his best performance in an Arsenal shirt so far, even though nearly every performance he's had has been an 8 or 10 out of 10 performance, which is just crazy at his age. And I do want to talk about the relationship with the players he has around him, because I do think it is vitally important for his progression in this team. I now think that him and Gabriel have a great understanding of what you want to get from each other. As you will see, a lot of the runs and a lot of the things that they did in this game were often helping each other. They really did work well with each other down that left-hand side, and Gabriel was aggressive in helping Myles Lewis-Skelly coming over if he really felt like he needed it, which shows a great leadership as well from him. And there's such a good understanding, I think, with the players around him, that he is the real ball carrier from deep in this team, a little bit like you may have seen other Arsenal players do before. But because he is so physical and so strong, he's not necessarily just down to that technical ability. It's something I would have seen a lot more from Zinchenko, or wanted from Zinchenko, when he was playing in this role for Arsenal. But obviously that physical nature really didn't help him when people would just be quite aggressive in a challenge on him and then he'd lose the ball. Myles is basically like a better version of Zinchenko, because not only is he a strong defender, he is incredibly aggressive, incredibly physical, and I believe he's quite a lot faster and covers a lot more ground than him. I mean, he pretty much ate that whole left-hand side up in this game yet again. And I want to make it clear, in this game, Myles Lewis-Skelly's defensive performance was incredible. Now, even in attacking, he made 6 passes into the final third, he made 1 successful dribble, and he had 48 touches with a 30 out of 32 pass completion, which is good. But defensively, he has an absolute world-class performance. 3 out of 4 tackles won, 2 clearances, 1 headed clearance, 2 interceptions, 9 defensive actions, 6 recoveries, which is incredible. And he won most of his duels, 5 out of 7 ground duels won, which is uber impressive. Overall, I've got to give it to Arsenal that we have just stumbled into this absolute world-class talent. Not only him, obviously Waneri's another one, but he's been consistent when he's come in. And honestly, if he's not in the starting 11, I don't know what's going on, unless there's maybe some tactical changes with Calafiori coming in. But in these games, he has shown he can do it, and I believe that he will probably be playing for England by the World Cup in 2026 if he continues this form up. And let's not forget, he is not a left back, he he is a midfielder. So maybe and potentially there's a long-term future of him being in the midfield, with Arsenal instead buying a different sort of left back. It really does depend. I think he could play both roles brilliantly. Overall, let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and watch my video yesterday where I speak about potentially our new signing Martin Zubimendi. See you in the next one.